Today on Doomed! Selina Vickers, activist and Bernie Sanders delegate from West Virginia, who has been traveling around the country to attend DNC events as they hold meetings to change the nomination rules as we look towards the future of the party, joins us today to discuss her experience. And you might have seen her in the news, explicitly mentioned in Huffington Post and Washington Post, because I guess simply attending these events and not being a part of the Democratic Party establishment makes you a possible Russian agent. Ooh, spooky, folks. All right, everybody. So thanks for joining us today, everybody. As you know, you could support this show at patreon.com/mattbinder. You can subscribe to this show on iTunes at doomedpod.com. Let me pull up the feed here. You can also support this show by just, telling your friends about it. Let's do this. Here she is, Selina Vickers, everybody. Hi, Selina.
Hello, Matt.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with this. I think I told everybody a quick summary during the intro of the show. But let's start with this. You were a Bernie Sanders delegate from West Virginia in 2016.
Correct.
So tell me how you started. I mean, have you always been politically active? Or were you sort of like 2016? A lot of people sort of got involved thanks to the craziness that was the 2016 presidential elections between Trump, Hillary, Bernie, and really all the crazy Republican candidates that year. So tell me a bit about you coming into 2016 and becoming a Bernie Sanders delegate.
Okay. So I've always been, somewhat politically active. I thought I was politically active, but in hindsight, I wasn't. I always voted in primaries and generals. I would have an issue that I cared about. I might, if I was in D.C., I might go by and talk to my representative about it. I'd go to Charleston, which is my state capital, and on the Humane Society, animal rights, day or something like that. But, but I never worked for a campaign. I never canvassed. I never phone banked. I didn't donate money. I mean, until 2016 or really 2015, I had not done any of that. And I did have a little foray when I was, I think, in my 20s where, do you remember when John McCain and Granny D, they did this big thing on campaign finance reform, and I was really connected with that. And I did a little stuff with Common Cause, but I always knew that getting money out of politics or having a fair campaign finance system, that's the root issue to all of our problems. And so I did a little bit of stuff with that then, but nobody cared about that issue.
Right.
Nobody cared. And then I was on Facebook one day, I think it was in May of 2015, and my daughter's dance teacher had shared a meme, and I don't even remember what it said, but it was probably something about universal health care or something. I don't remember what it was, but whatever it was this quote was by Bernie Sanders, president for United States president. And whatever that said, it was exactly oh my gosh, there's somebody running for president that feels this way. And so I had never heard of him before. I started, Googling him and watching YouTube videos, and absolutely, I just could not believe that somebody like this was running for president. I never in my entire life thought that somebody like him even existed in politics.
Right.
And so I was I'm just going to do everything I can to help. And I didn't even know what to do, but me and some friends just started, meeting and talking. And then the really, really funny thing is somewhere on his website, there was a thing about, volunteering, and it had this list of things that you could do, phone bank and this, that, and the other. Would you canvass door to door? And then one of the checks was would you travel out of state to canvass? And I remember thinking, so I'm a mom. At that time, my daughter was I think she was a junior in high school then. I work full time. I have a real life, believe it or not. Right. And I remember thinking, who does that? Like, who goes to another state? So that was like probably around July or August or something. And then, we had done a lot of Bernie stuff in West Virginia. It was very, very popular in West Virginia. And then January came, which was the Iowa caucus. And just like every time a poll would come out, I'd watch so closely. And it just, he was like 10 points behind, and then 8 points, and then 5 points. And it was like so close. And I just told my husband, I got to go to Iowa. And so I ended up hooking up with some people that I did not even know. 10 people out of Charlotte, North Carolina. They were coming through West Virginia and going to Iowa. And on a Thursday night around 11 o'clock at night, I met them and got in a van with a bunch of strangers. I've never in my entire life done anything like that. And it was really one of the best experiences of my life. And we canvassed all weekend long, and from morning till night. And then on Monday was the day of the caucus, and we canvassed all day until about 7 o'clock, and the caucus started at 7, and we got back in the van and headed home. So that was nothing I'd ever planned to do. So
you were in it, like you were, you got involved, like you drove so from the beginning to the end, you were, and obviously because you showed up at you attended the convention in July as a delegate from West Virginia. Wow. So yeah. That's great.
We organized in West Virginia. Bernie won every single county in West Virginia.
Right.
And he was very popular in West Virginia. And so, yeah, it was an incredible experience. And then, he was robbed.
So I want to ask you this, actually. I thought about bringing it up towards the end if we had time, but you brought up how Bernie won every county in West Virginia. And I do want to talk about this a little bit. This really isn't the point of the interview, but I think it's interesting to hear from someone who's from West Virginia, who is a progressive. A lot of people in the Democratic Party, not the base at least, when they think of West Virginia, they think of this deep red, probably one of the most Republican states in the country. And, in many ways it is. But at the same time, before, 2000 with George W. Bush, West Virginia was the bluest state in the country. And it's always bad. Like, I don't know if people, especially young people who are Democrats or even Republicans, know this. West Virginia was the bluest state in the country up until 2000. There was no state of all 50 states who went with the Democrat in the presidency more than West Virginia up until that point. So what do you think happened?
Well, nothing happened, really. I mean, the Democrats, okay, so here's what people need to know about West Virginia. And I don't know if other states are like this or not. Maybe they are. But West Virginia has one party, and it's the fossil fuel party. That's it. Fossil fuels control everything here, and the majority of the politicians. So when the Democrats, were in charge, the Democrats were passing, making mountaintop removal possible. They were doing horrible things. And I mean, I'm not going to say that they did everything bad, but fossil fuels basically controlled them. And so when the Tea Party thing and all that stuff happened, 10 years ago or whatever, then all this kind of moral majority thing that kind of kicked up. And West Virginia is like a socially conservative state, a Bible Belt. So that stuff sort of kind of like got kicked in. But even today, I mean, the bottom line is fossil fuels they're in control of the state.
But would you say that, if I also think, I think Democrats are probably, in terms of like, the way, coal mining is, the industries that are that, like you say, run West Virginia. I think the Democrats are, for the most part, right in terms of, actually, fully, not for the most part, they are right that these are old, these are no longer going to be feasible industries. But I think they've done a terrible job in, like, you have all these people working in these industries. You can easily say, but we'll create these programs so that you'll all be, like, you guys can move into these new energy efficient, environmental friendly industries. We'll create this governmental program and make sure all you guys who've been families been working in these industries for years, get just moved into these newer industries, and everything, everyone will be fine, and everyone will make their salaries, and no one will lose out, no one will lose money. But they haven't done that. And I think, I do think people would be for that if they're told, these things are no longer going to be viable. This is the future, but we're going to help you prepare for it, and we'll set you guys all up.
I agree 100%, but that's not what happens.
Exactly.
West Virginia is resource rich and pocketbook poor. I mean, people from outside of the state have come to West Virginia for hundreds of years, and or for decades, maybe a better way to say it. But I mean, it was coal and it was timber, and now it's gas and oil. And people who do not even live in West Virginia may have never set a foot in West Virginia. They want what is in West Virginia, and they want to give nothing for it. And unfortunately, our infrastructure has suffered, our education has suffered. I think I saw a map the other day that had population. Every single state in the United States has, over time, gained population except West Virginia. People leave West Virginia because, it's so hard to have a decent job or have a decent school and different things like that. But it can all be boiled down to fossil fuels.
Right. And one thing that interested me, we will get to this DNC thing in a second. We're totally going off on a tangent now. But
right.
One thing that really interested me was when the exit polls from West Virginia came out in 2016. I believe they asked people who voted for Bernie and people who voted for Hillary how they identified. And there was a liberal category and a conservative category. And more people who identified as conservative voted for Bernie. And, people who don't know anything about politics came out and said, like, oh, look at that. And people were saying Bernie's the more progressive candidate. No, that's not what that meant. To me, this is what that meant. In West Virginia, the word liberal does not mean what it means in New York and California. The word liberal has come, even to me, I used to, when I was, coming up as someone who's really into politics in high school and college, I called myself a liberal. But as I got older, I call myself a progressive, and then I called myself a leftist, because even progressive is somewhat getting like taken over by.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So like progressive used to be the term, and then so I call myself a leftist now. But liberal has really come to people who are maybe not as into politics or aren't from the coasts, to pretty much, people think of liberal, they think of some sort of like rich, hoity-toity celeb who comes out for, for the social issues, but is nowhere when it comes to class or economic issues. And, your rich tech companies, your Google execs, your Facebook execs, that's what people think of when they hear the word liberal now. I don't think that's how it always was. Liberal used to actually mean progressive, and then progressive used to mean progressive. But that's what I think that exit poll showed, that people in West Virginia view the word liberal differently than people elsewhere.
Very much so. And here was the bottom line. And, outside of the categorizing, labeling people, which, it's just West Virginia. But the bottom line is, Bernie, we are a very, very poor state. Poor health, poor education system, just an enormous amount of people that are economically disadvantaged, and Bernie's economic message, and he has a strong labor message. And West Virginia used to be, it's not so much now. It's starting to get a little bit better, but he had a very, very strong labor union message, and that brought back the feelings that people had when they had power. when they had strong unions and they had a say and they had, better pay and better benefits, and somebody was, they had somebody looking out for them. I mean, that was, in my opinion, the big draw of the majority of the people to Senator Sanders. Now, and of course, all the millennials and stuff, they liked him for all the reasons everybody else liked him. But there were a lot. I mean, I have here's my phone. When I got this when I was in Iowa, so the little phone case, it has Bernie. So
right.
Of course, everybody sees your phone. I mean, everywhere I go, people were like, "I love your phone." I mean, old people, young people, everybody in between.
Sorry about that. You broke up. You broke up a little bit. Just go back just a little bit. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, but it's, there were a lot of different types of people, and even Democrats who voted for Trump because they really did not like Hillary, because Hillary didn't have that I'm going to work for the underdog message, and Bernie certainly did. So a lot of people really try to throw that up in my face that the Bernie people just went for Trump. But I mean, I think we shouldn't judge people on that.
Right. I do think I really do think that if it was, I mean, there's obviously racists in every state and horrible people in every state, but I do think that, in West Virginia, if a Democrat was to come along like Bernie, who had a strong economic message, West Virginians would vote for him over the Republican, even with that strong economic message. There's a strong racial equality, gender equality message. I really do think, and I say that for every state probably, if you have that strong economic message to go across with everything else, I think you have a winning platform there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, I want to point out that in this primary, we could talk about this after the DNC, but I just want to point out in the 2018 primary that just happened for Senate, more Democrats voted overall in the West Virginia primary than Republicans. So,
Okay, that's true, but Democrats outnumber Republicans in West Virginia 3-1. So that's right. You have to factor that in.
Right. I mean, but then again, that should even mean more so that West Virginia is not as deep red as people think. It's not like, gone, it was only up until 2000 that they were voting Republican.
Right. And the thing about it is, we're getting into all these issues I talk about all the time. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but the West Virginia Democratic Party is run by Joe Manchin, who is a Democrat. He is a Democrat, and our rallying cry for to get people to vote for him is he votes with the Democrats 60% of the time. That's this is why we should vote for him.
Right.
But him and his people, if there's a progressive, they keep him down. They'll let a few of them come up. They want Democrats to believe, they really are behind them. But in my opinion, not like my county people or anything like that, but like the people at the very, very tippy top, like these DNC members. I think, personally, I believe that their goal is to get just enough they don't mind Democrats getting in as long as they'll vote for the fossil fuels, but they want just enough of progressives to get in so they can kind of go, look what we have, But I think they want to be very careful not to get too many real progressives in, and I firmly believe that. I can't prove it, but I firmly believe it.
Right. No, I think you're right, and I think that happens all across the country, and I think that's the perfect segue into your experience at the DNC. So let's actually get started with this really interesting thing that happened where you were so like I mentioned, you've been traveling across the country going to DNC meetings as they've been having these rule changing meetings as they prepare for the upcoming election seasons, and so you've been going to almost all of them, probably more than anybody else who isn't involved with the process itself. So because you've been doing this and you've been taking video and notes and really being a sort of a citizen journalist here covering this, you were recently accused of being and I love saying it like this, A Russian agent. Ooh. So I would just like to say that this is the official activation code coming on this show. You are now to tell Putin everything you know. No, but so what happened? This is insane, and I think I had you on not to talk about 2016 and rehash 2016. It's 2018. It's 2018, obviously, though. But like, of course, it's important to, I think, talk about it to understand why we got here, and how we got here. But we're seeing what's going on with the Trump administration. And we're seeing this, to me, this most recent thing is easily the most brutal, with these families being ripped apart as they cross the border, children being taken away from their parents, not a chance to say goodbye, parents hearing their kids in a separate room crying for them, and these parents are being held. And I believe I've even heard stories where the parents are sent back, but the kids aren't sent back with them.
Oh my God. So I had not heard that.
Yeah,
oh my God.
So it's just, unbelievable. We're talking about kids as young as, I believe I heard, as young as, 12 months old. I mean, just incredible and just heartbreaking and disgusting. And yes, we can talk about how the Democrats got us to this point, but 100% this policy of...
It's happening now. Yeah.
This is happening now, but also this policy specifically of taking the kids away from the parents is a Trump thing, period. This is not... You want to call Obama a deporter-in-chief because he deported more people who crossed the border than George W. Bush? Absolutely. If you want to hit the Democrats for not doing anything to stop these policies that the Trump administration are now taking advantage of, absolutely. But this specific policy of splitting the families up is not on the Democrats. It is 100% the Trump administration thing. But we have to understand how Trump even became president. And as we look towards 2020, as we look towards 2018, obviously, first off, we want to make sure the Republicans lose power in at least one of the, either the House or the Senate, at least. But as we look continue to look forward, the DNC is changing these rules to ostensibly, and you could talk more into this because you definitely know more than me attending these things, to change the rules about superdelegates. Is that correct?
There's multiple rule changes that they're doing, and one of the big ones is superdelegates, yes.
So you've been going to these rule changing meetings, and let's also make this clear, because I know, there's a lot of people on the left, and a lot of people on I call them the centrist, the centrist Democrats, or the mainstream Democrats, or the corporatist Democrats, the people who are still online with the talking about how they're part of the resistance with the hashtag still with her, who says they'll vote for any Democrat in 2020 to beat Trump, and then you say even Bernie, and they go, no, never Bernie.
Never Bernie.
There's crazy people like that. I do think they're a small portion of Democrats overall. The polls show. I believe that's why online they call them the 8%ers, because people, poll after poll comes out and it says shows the approval ratings for Bernie in the Democratic Party, and I believe only 8% disapprove of him. So they are a very small but loud minority. But then on the same,
and they're all on the DNC,
right? Yes, but then in the same,
promise you they are.
And then in the same breath, though, there are still, I think on the left, I know my fellow leftists and democratic socialists and full-on socialists, whatever, everyone on the left knows these guys exist, and we call them like the loony left or the dumb left. These leftists who stray into conspiracy theory and think Hillary Clinton killed Seth Rich, which is, and I think they're a problem too. I think they don't help out our cause at all. And, I think they get caught up in just how much the DNC affected the primary in 2016. Without a doubt, the DNC put their thumbs on the scales. Without a doubt, they affected the election in some way. They affected it in some way. Mm-hmm. But I do not think, unfortunately, I really wish this was the case, Bernie, people have to understand just how low on the totem pole Bernie started. And just how high he came. Just how close he got. But in the same effect, Hillary Clinton had this 20-year plus lead ahead of him. She was it
was her turn, Matt.
Right.
Hadn't you heard?
Also, though, in 2008, it was down to her and Barack Obama. Bernie's going to be in the position she was in terms of at least the runner-up in the primaries. He's going to be there in the next election if he chooses to run. I do think most people have to look at him having the same, obviously not in the Democratic structure because the party obviously doesn't want him, but in terms of how the people look at things, 2016, even people who aren't in the DNC or part of the Democratic Party bigwigs, they viewed Hillary, I'm sure, as, she's going to start as the front runner because of her position in the last election. And I do think Bernie will start in that position going forward too. So I
agree. And I'm just going to just say this, though. I agree. I mean, I think he's the most popular politician, that sort of thing. Definitely, his ratings will be good and stuff like that. But with that said, I don't think that the Bernie people should just say, oh, it's his turn.
Absolutely.
I didn't like it when they did it with her. He needs, he is working hard. We need to, focus on what he's doing, but he needs to earn it. He doesn't get anything just because, he's my favorite politician. He still has to earn it.
You're blowing the minds of a ton of those centrist Bernie haters right now because that's how they view I just wanted to point out because when you get into talking about 2016, there's going to be both those people, those crazy conspiratorial leftists, and then these same 8%ers on the other side. I'm sure there'll be a few people listening to this, and I just wanted to say before we get into this anymore, you're both wrong. So let's let's get into these DNC rule changes, because I do think actually that this time around that pressing the thumb on the scales for whoever the DNC chooses to be their favorite is going to mean a lot more, because last time while Bernie started from very low and got very high, it's still, when it comes down to it, that thumb pressing on the scales, it wasn't close enough for that thumb pressing to be the overall change maker. I think even without that thumb on the scales, Hillary would have walked away with the nomination and probably would have been a little bit closer, but she would have walked away. However, this time, without that Hillary Clinton, who knows if she's going to run again, imagine, but without her running, it's going to be a lot more Democrats running. There's not going to be that clear front runner, that clear favorite. So that thumb on the scales from the DNC, for whoever they choose to be their person, it's not going to be Bernie, by the way, is going to matter. So let's get into these rule changes. So what exactly are they proposing?
Okay, so there was 4 big what Larry Cohen calls buckets, okay? And this came out of the unit back at the convention in 2016. All of the delegates, both Bernie and Hillary, we unanimously passed a resolution that Bernie and Hillary orchestrated that created the Unity Reform Commission and laid out 4 things for them to do. And then the Unity Reform Commission, they met 5 times. They came up with a report, Unity Reform Commission report, and so then that was handed off to the rules and bylaws so that they got it in this past January. So basically, of course, superdelegates is one big, huge piece of it. And I'll go into a little bit more about that in just a second. The other piece of it was caucuses. I don't have a caucus state, but like Nebraska and Iowa, Washington, Nevada, they are. And there were people who attended caucuses. Some of them felt like their voice didn't really count. There was some hinky things that happened. But the biggest thing, whether the hinky stuff happened or not, the way a caucus works is, hey, we're having it at 7:00 this evening. If you are a single parent and your kid has, basketball, too bad. If you work at a hospital and can't get off that shift, too bad. If you're sick, too bad. There's no absentee ballot. There's no, I'm going to get up and go early to work. You have to be there on time, and you have to, on time, you have to be there, right. And you're there sometime for 2 or 3 hours. And a lot of people cannot do that, so it disenfranchises a lot of people. So they wanted to try to look at a way that they could still, a lot of people just want rid of caucuses, period. But the big thing about caucuses is to the caucus states really want to have them. They say it's party building, a lot of energy. They can find volunteers there and stuff like that. To still have that, but still have a way that people can vote, and count their vote, and they can come sometime. And so there are like these reforms put in place that are trying to fix some of the problems. And what basically the goal is for caucus states is to put some things in place. If they can get it done and be better, they're okay. If they can't, they have to move to a primary. So then the next one is open primaries. That was a big thing. My state is okay. We've got a semi-open primary. So if I'm a Democrat, I can't vote on a Republican ballot. But if I'm an independent, I can choose which ballot I want to go with. But like in New York is like the worst of the worst.
Oh, it is. I can tell. Yeah. I can tell you from experience. As I'm from New York. It's
okay. Yeah.
It is. First of all, I'm not sure the exact amount of time, but
6 months.
It's 6 months.
I think it's 6 months.
Because people who decided let's go back to 2016. Our primary was in the middle of April 2016. If you wanted to change your party registration from independent to Democrat to vote for Bernie, or even Hillary if you were an independent, whoever you wanted to vote for come April, you had to make that change October of 2015.
Yep.
Which means that if you were to watch that first debate, which was in October 2015, and say, oh, I really liked Hillary. Oh, I really liked Bernie. Oh, I really liked Martin O'Malley. Who cares? Whatever.
Exactly.
It was too late. It was too late for you. You already missed your chance to vote in the Democratic primary in New York. It's ridiculous. And it's done very purposefully, I might add.
It is, but the other thing is, if you are never registered, if you're like you're a kid, and you just turn 18, maybe the month before the primary, and you want to register to vote, you're fine. I mean, and I'm glad that doesn't need to change.
Right.
But it's not like they don't have a process. It takes 6 months to process something. That is an intentional thing to disenfranchise voters. So changing to open primaries where people can participate in the voting process in the primary. That was a big part of the reform. Another big piece of it is just party reform. Things like, if you want to run for your county executive committee or your state executive committee, making those announcements of when to do that, how to do that, giving people an opportunity to just basically participate. And there's a lot of very specifics in there. I remember Jim Zogby, he wanted an ombudsman process for the DNC members. So if they thought something hinky was going on, they could go have some kind of ombudsman to go to, when the debate issue was going on, and when just different things that were happening you could go to. So he really wanted that. And so different kind of party reform type things. And then, so let me tell you what happened with the superdelegate thing. So they've basically dealt with all that. All that is ready to go. Those reforms will be ready to vote on in August. That's when the full, the Unity Reform Commission, they made these recommendations. They passed it off to the Rules and Bylaws Committee, and then that Rules and Bylaws Committee looked over all these and tried to, they don't have to go with reforms, but for the most part they did. And so they tried to figure out how to put that into rules and what that would look like and what would pass the DNC as well. So they're going to have one more phone call, and then the big DNC meeting, the full DNC meeting, will be in August in Chicago, and that's where everybody will vote on these. So they did not definitely decide on what they were going to do, but here are their options. There are several options that they're looking at. One option, and not very many people, there's one or two, old timers that want this, is just this is perfect. Superdelegates are wonderful. It's a tremendous system. We need to not change anything. So, that's one option. That's not going to fly. The other option is the option that's laid out in the Unity Reform Commission, which is they were bound by the resolution that we passed at the convention. So they didn't really have any choice. But basically, what that said, is you would still have, obviously, your pledge delegates, which were the people like me, that just, ran for, to be a delegate.
Right.
The people, the last time that were super delegates were people who were DNC members already, which are state chairs, vice chairs, Democratic men, Democratic women, and people who are like the chair and vice chair of like the Democratic Governors Association, or the Democratic Secretary of State's Association. They have all these associations. If you're a chair or vice chair of those, you're a DNC member, okay? And then they got a bunch of at-large, which are basically just chair favorites that are there. And then you have the group, what they call distinguished party leaders. Those are your members of Democratic members of Congress, Democratic presidents, ex-presidents, vice presidents. If you
very distinguished, very.
Oh, very, yeah. If majority leader, so there's like Democratic governors. There's like these certain people who are what they call in that category. So what the Unity Reform Commission, what their recommendation was based on that resolution, was members of those distinguished party leaders, they would keep their super status. They could be unpledged, period. All of the DNC members, they were automatic delegates. So they would automatically get to go to the convention, and they would get to vote and participate in all the things, but they had to be proportional. They had to vote. They had to break themselves up proportionally to how their state voted. Mm-hmm. So basically, what that did is reduce the superdelegates by like 60%. So initially, I was like, "This is the best we'll ever get." I was sort of okay with it. I mean, I wasn't happy with it, but I thought it's a big foot in the door.
Right.
So then the Unity Reform, the Rules and Bylaws, they have come up with some other options, and honestly, surprisingly, because the other thing that a little aside, but back in October, the DNC had their fall meeting, and Perez had just got installed in the meeting before that. So he got to pick his committee people, and so basically he kicked all the Bernie people and all the Ellison, everybody that backed Ellison and Bernie, kicked all of them off of these big main committees. The big committees are Executive Committee, Budget, Resolutions, and Rules and Bylaws. So he kicked all of them off and replaced them with people, and his reasoning was he wanted more diversity, but he would like kick a person of color off, or a gay person off, and then replace them with another diverse person that supported him or Hillary. So it was like this. It was a brilliant strategy.
We need more diversity of the people who like me.
Yes, exactly. So I thought, okay, we're doomed, now because, but surprisingly, they have, some of them are really pushing to get rid of superdelegates completely. So one option
I'm sorry, I gotta stop for a second. 22 episodes in, and finally a guest has used the name of the show.
Oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me.
Thank you. It's taken this long. Unbelievable.
What do I win?
I'm gonna have to invite you back on for sure. That's
awesome. So anyway, so the other option that they're coming up with, and I actually put this on the on my Twitter and Facebook page today. I made this nice little meme of Randi Weingarten, who is the president of AFT, and she made the most greatest speech and talked about the importance of the grassroots, and we need to honor what comes out of the caucus and primaries, and we need not to interfere with that. And she,
as just one more aside for any any of those centrists who may be listening to this, Randi Weingarten was a strong Hillary supporter during the primary. Yes. She was not a Bernie person.
Nope, she was not. No, absolutely. And my first conversation with her, it was a nice conversation, but it was we were like way apart on things. And like now, not that I had anything to do with it, I didn't, but now like she made the speech, last Friday and said, let the people who are supers, the DNC and the distinguished party leaders, they just don't get a vote on the first ballot. The first ballot will be completely representative of the caucuses and primaries. And then if there's not a clear winner, then on the second ballot, then the supers can vote. So I thought that was, a brilliant option, So then there were a few people who didn't like, who really wanted to participate. So they came up with the option of, okay, let's, if there is a clear winner and everybody knows it going into the DNC convention, then there would be some kind of a trigger. Like if you know that Hillary was going to win, then it would automatically be a trigger that all the superdelegates, then they get to vote. So then Maria Cardona, she sometimes you might see her on CNN. She's on the Rules and Bylaws Committee, and she started talking about the perceptions, because nobody on that committee believes that superdelegates really affect the outcome, but they fight really, really hard to keep them on. My God.
Right.
So
what I think what they really do is, they haven't so far, at least, have changed the outcome of an election. But I do think, if you're someone who's not that politically active and you're deciding whether you're going to go vote in a primary, and you see that one person is so far ahead because the superdelegate numbers are counted at the very beginning, you go either, well, I'm going to vote for the person who's going to obviously win because I want to help make sure that person must be the best shot we have at beating the Republican if they're already getting all the support. Or they go, oh, I'm not going to vote for the other person because they're so far behind that there's no chance they're going to win.
Or I'm not going to go at all because such and such is already ahead. And then they don't down ballot vote on other important issues.
Right.
And so, that ticker tape at the top, I mean, to me, that ticker tape is huge, and it's misleading because they count superdelegate votes before, and the superdelegates don't get to vote until they get to the convention, Right. So, and I think the other thing is that, like in my state of West Virginia, Bernie Sanders won. Here's the backside of that. He won every single county, single county in West Virginia. Hillary got 36% of the vote. People came. I mean, there was so much energy, and they came out and voted, right? So then on the nightly news, they're like, okay, well, here's how the delegate count is now, and you see that Bernie won everything, but then Hillary almost got as many delegates as him. Well, actually, she ended up getting all of them at the end because of some things that happened. But anyway, so people like these young people who are like, it's their first time that they really got excited, and they went and vote. And I got some Republicans to change their voter registration to vote for Bernie, right, in the primary.
I have a quick question, actually.
Yeah,
I know. I really do believe that Bernie Sanders can defeat Trump in a presidential election. Oh yeah. But would he defeat Trump in West Virginia?
I don't know. I think he would have. I'm not completely sure. I really am not. But
because I don't think I know for a fact no Democrat, at least on a national scale, would win West Virginia. Period. Definitely not against Trump. Bernie, however, I maybe Bernie would be the only one. And honestly, I don't know. But this is what I do know, that we could not get the vote out for Hillary. I mean, I personally, I didn't try, but other people did. Also, there's really
not even really. I mean, the West Virginia Democratic Party didn't even try to get out the vote for her. They told other Democrats who were running to not associate, to distance themselves from Hillary. Anybody wanted to volunteer for Hillary, they sent them to Ohio or Pennsylvania. Like, they did not even try in West Virginia. Right. And
that does make sense, though. I mean, it's not good to, it definitely looks bad and tells people in West Virginia that you have no hope that you're gonna why even bother. But I do understand that strategy if you do need the resources. But again, I don't think they really, I mean, maybe they did need the resources looking at how it all turned out, but
But Trump was a really, really horrible, and and what happened. But the big thing, and this is what my point was to them at Reform and Rules and Bylaws, is when we could not get the vote out for Hillary, then all the Trump people came out, and then they voted down the ballot Republicans. So now our state house, our state senate, and our governor are all Republican, and they're passing these horrible, horrible things. And I truly think that, the exact same superdelegates who pushed Hillary over the top to, she won West Virginia without winning one county because all superdelegates lined up for her. She ended up with 19 delegates, Bernie 18. Right. And those exact same superdelegates and those people who worked really, really hard to undermine the people of West Virginia told our other candidates to not get behind her, to distance themselves from her. So they I believe, are responsible for our down ballot situation that's so bad. So we don't have anybody in there like doing anything to try to help us, or at least not in the majority.
We should at least change the name of superdelegates, because we're not going to get rid of them, it looks like. But maybe people wouldn't want to be.
I don't know. I think we might.
Really?
I think there's I think there's possibility. I really do. I mean, okay. So here's the thing.
Let's get back to that then. Where we left off, because where we just left off before we got on that little aside, it sounded like it was getting better, but it was still going to be there. But if you're telling me differently, then I was going to say if we could at least get them maybe called shitty delegates or something, so people have to proudly announce that they're a shitty delegate, something like that. But if
they hate the. If they hate the name super, they'll be glad. They'll glad to change.
Let's just get rid of them then.
But yeah, so now they're trying to figure a way, and I think they're really trying to figure out a way so that they can sort of be super and vote, but only on the second ballot. It's not going to be perfect. I mean, it is not going to be perfect, but they have a vote that's going to happen on the phone on either June 26th or 27th. It's my understanding it'll be a public phone call, and I think they're going to make that decision then. And here's the thing, they and all my super left people will say that I'm stupid for saying this, but I truly believe it. Like, they know that they have to change. They want to win in November. They want to win in 2020. They absolutely want to get rid of Trump in 2020. They want to flip either the House or Senate. They know that they have to do something. They are in crisis mode. If they do not change, they're going to go away. I mean, they are going to lose over and over and over again. They know that they have to change, and I think what they want to do is change just enough to get by. What is that? How much can they change, but then still have control? Because all these reforms are about giving control to people, to the people, and they don't trust us. I mean, that's the biggest thing. They do not trust that we will make the right decision, and so they want to keep some control. So, but I firmly believe that there will be some major reform that happens in August. I don't know if it'll be perfect. I know it won't be perfect, but the Bernie people are not going to be completely happy, and the diehard DNC people are not going to be completely happy. But hopefully, it'll be enough to unify and give us a foot in the door, so that people who do care about reform can run for these positions and get in, and then eventually make real reform.
While you feeling good about it definitely has me feeling a little bit more, I guess, optimistic than I normally would, I guess, being that you've been attending these things and you've been seeing the process play out. One thing that definitely has me maybe maybe more pessimist than optimist is that while all you've said is good and they want to change, nothing says I want to change like saying that the one person there who's just observing it all to see it all played out is a Russian agent. So what happened there? Let's get to this finally.
Okay, so there's a little bit of a story to this too. I'm sorry to be so wordy. Okay, so we're going to have to go back to the 90s to actually where this began. All right. So we had this really, really amazing woman. Her name was Charlotte Pritt. She was like the Bernie of her time. She was in our state legislature, and she ran for governor. Just incredible energy around her. Everybody loved her. Joe Manchin, who is our current, senator in Congress. He was in the state legislature as well. So he and her both ran for governor. She won the primary. Okay. So then Joe Manchin, who I mentioned earlier.
I just want to say, Joe Manchin, you lost that one.
Yes, he did. And remember how I talked to you about, fossil fuels control West Virginia? Right. So instead of him getting behind the winner, and we could have won that. We could have had a female Bernie that was our governor back in the 90s. Everybody loved her. Joe Manchin worked to create an organization called Democrats for Underwood, which was the Republican. Okay. And Underwood won instead of Charlotte Pritt. Okay.
So I actually did not know this. And this is really interesting to me because Joe Manchin literally did what those 8%ers, those Bernie haters, he literally did what they claim Bernie did, which he didn't. He supported Hillary, worked harder than anybody, minus Bill and Chelsea, to get her elected. I'm like, my mind is being blown right now. And they come out and defend Joe Manchin whenever the Bernie supporters and the left and the Democratic Socialists even give the slightest criticism to Joe Manchin simply because he has that D next to his name.
Exactly.
Wow.
Okay. So then we fast forward to 2016. So we have, the Bernie Hillary thing going on. So the people who were running for governor in West Virginia, the Republican was I think it was the speaker. He was Speaker of the Senate or Senate Majority President or whatever it was. So he was running for governor. His name was Bill Cole. Horrible Koch brother owned Republican. I think he was a millionaire. All right. So then we had this other Republican named Jim Justice, who Joe Manchin recruited to run for governor on the Democratic ticket. So about 2 or 3 weeks before the deadline to register as a Democrat, Jim Justice, who is a billionaire who owns coal mines, who never pays his taxes.
Is that his real name? It can't be.
Jim Justice.
I refuse to believe that's his real name.
He's got a great name. His name is Jim Justice, and he's like the Trump of West Virginia. I mean, I think he's a little bit nicer than Trump, but anyway. So he changed from Republican to Democrat, and he ran again. He's a billionaire, and we had a really good guy by the name of Jeff Kessler who was running and he was a good guy. He was a good Democrat, good guy. He's not perfect, but he's a good guy. And I think Joe Manchin and his clan did not want him. So they got Jim Justice, and then they recruited this other really nice guy, Booth Goodwin. So basically it's, split, the race. Jim Justice, and Manchin is like brilliant about doing that. He knows how to recruit just to split just right. So Jim Justice won. Okay. Won the primary. So then it was horrible Bill Cole and horrible Jim Justice, who are, I just can't even tell you how horrible they are, right? So then Charlotte Pritt had, tried to do reforms back in the, 90s and, back when I wasn't paying as much attention. She tried to reform the Democratic Party and couldn't do it. So then she joined the Mountain Party, which is the Green Party in West Virginia, okay? So she decided that because our options are so incredibly horrible, she was going to run for governor again, right?
Right.
So to me, Jim Justice and Bill Cole were one and the same. So I supported Charlotte Pritt. Well, the reason that Charlotte Pritt was able to run rather easily is because they have been able over time to keep ballot access. Like I think if you get like 3 or 5% or something in previous races, you keep ballot access. So one, I was voting for Charlotte Pritt because she was the only decent option, period. And so what happened with, I already told you that, Hillary could not win not one case.
Uh-oh. We just lost her. 1 second. I'll get her right back and we'll fix this for the podcast. No problem. Oh, no big deal. This happens. This is the first time someone's dropped off on this show, but it used to happen all the time on the Majority Report. Uh-oh, we lost her. Let me see. 1 second, folks. So now's a good time, I guess, to say that if you'd like to support this show, become a member at patreon.com/MattBinder. $5 a month helps you. Helps me, excuse me, grow the show. There we go. Here we go. There we go. You're back.
My Skype just completely shut down. I have no idea why.
That's all right. You're just not on video. Is that that's fine if you can't?
No, I can click. I just have to click this button now, I think.
There we go. All right, great.
I have no idea why that happened.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Okay. So anyway, Hillary, there was zero chance of Hillary winning in West Virginia, right? So I had the option of voting for Trump, which was not going to happen, voting for Hillary Clinton, which I really didn't want to. I probably would have if I was in a swing state because Bernie wanted me to, but I really did not want to. But I was in a very safe state in terms of that. So a lot of my friends were writing in Bernie, but I decided to vote for Jill Stein. I like Jill Stein. Yeah, I'm not a Jill Stein hater, but she just wasn't like really who I wanted. But to me, I wanted to get enough people to vote for Jill Stein to keep the Green Party or the Mountain Party to have ballot access in West Virginia.
Specifically, so that was the only, probably because of your experience during the governor's race.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So, to me, each way, helping or, Trump or hurting Hillary, there's no way that she could win in West Virginia. So to me, it was a smart vote to help the only, the people like Charlotte. Okay.
Right.
So now with
see,
all
me personally, I'm no Jill Stein fan, but your way of voting makes perfect sense to me for the down ballot races. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So to me, it just made perfect sense. So, it was the best that I could do with my one little vote. So, I go to these meetings, So when I was in Nevada, Bob Mulholland, which is the guy that made the accusation about me, he introduced a resolution to force Angus King and Bernie to be a Democrat, and that failed.
Who is Bob Mulholland, by the way? I looked up a little bit about him. He seems to be just like this longtime senior Democratic operative, DNC member, basically the senior sort of strategist for the party based out of California.
Yeah. I don't know tons about him, but it's my understanding he's done like really weird things, like people have done, voter registration, and they voted somehow or another. He got their voter registration forms. They voted or they registered independent or green, and he would call them up and try to get them to change to Democrat. And he's done some other things that have gotten him in trouble and got kicked out of things. But I really don't know a lot about him. But he is a very vocal DNC member, and he's been voted on by his district in California. And so I just went up to him. I was there at the resolutions meeting. I live streamed it. And then afterwards, I just went up to him. I just wanted to have a conversation with him. And he basically ended up like yelling at me a lot. And I was trying to have a conversation with him about, how important Bernie was to West Virginia and da-da-da. It was like in one ear, out the other. And I had my friend there. My friend like yelled at him and started crying because he was yelling at me. And I'm like, it's okay. But anyway, I just didn't have a good experience with him. But then he was at the next meeting that I was at in DC, which I think was in December. And No. Okay, wait. So in Nevada, when I was then live streaming the big DNC meeting on that Saturday, I was just like sitting in the back of the room live streaming, and he just comes out of nowhere and walks by, like right as I'm live streaming. He said, "Who'd you vote for president?" And I said, "Jill Stein." And then he said something, I don't remember what he said, and then he left. Now, this email that he sent to like the DNC people, Dave Weigel I asked for a copy of it, so I got a copy of this email that he sent. He said that he dragged it out of me that I voted for Jill Stein. He literally walked by and said, "Who'd you vote for?" And I said, "Jill Stein." So anyway, So, and then I saw him again, and he said something kind of rude to me, and like I did, like at this point there was just some people that, I mean, there's no sense talking to them because they're not going to listen, and I just didn't want to talk to him anymore. And then the next thing, I mean, that was like I think in December that happened, and then I really have no clue what happened over the weekend. All I know is I was at work on Monday, and I got a text from Dave Weigel, who's one of the reporters from the Washington Post who covers some of these meetings, and I just know him from there. And he texted me the Huffington Post story, and he knew, I mean, I'm the only one from West Virginia who goes to multiple of these meetings. My friend Lissa went to the one in Nevada.
From the sounds of it, you're one of the only people in general who goes to these meetings who aren't involved in the actual, like, rule-making process. But that's good. We need someone who's covering this stuff. But no, continue.
Roots Action, they often send some people. There's some other activists that come. But anyway, so I live streamed the rules meeting. I live streamed the executive committee meeting. I came home. I was at work on Monday. And so got this from Dave Weigel, and I read the article, and it basically said that, that there's somebody was covering my expenses. So now, I mean, I don't have a lot of money, but, and I do travel really cheaply. I stay at Airbnbs, I look for cheap flights. Sometimes I stay in hostels and stuff like that. I just go as cheap as I can, right, so I can go. And so I just, a lot of the stuff I bought, like my plane ticket and my Airbnb was online. So I had my receipts, and I just forwarded them to Dave, and then he contacted Mulholland again, and Mulholland kind of doubled down. And I figured up, I think I spent like that last weekend was like about $330 between my plane, my train, my lifts, right, Airbnb, blah, blah, blah. I mean, literally, I did it that cheaply, like $330. So it kind of offends me that he thinks that people from West Virginia can't afford $330 for a weekend.
Well, clearly what you're doing to make sure that you don't get caught is that you lay out the money, and then you forward your reimbursements to Vladimir Putin, and he just West Unions you the $330 for that one. That's how it works, obviously.
So, it really was bizarre. And I really appreciated David Weigel's article that he wrote. And he got a couple things wrong, and then he corrected them. He said, I did run for office. His initial thing said that I lost by 500 votes, which is not true. I only lost by like 60 votes when I ran for office.
Oh, good for you. No, that's great. I hope you run again, because next time it'll probably be you'll win.
Well, as long as whoever gets in, if they do a good job, I'm going to back them. If they don't do a good job,
right,
well, we'll see. But right, I'm not going to run against somebody that's doing a good job.
No, I hear that.
But anyway, so yeah, and then after David Weigel's article, my name was out, and then that's when things really got wild, because my Facebook blew up, and I had to go talk to my boss.
So he never your work found out about this, really? Wow. Did people start contacting your
My boss was in a major board meeting when she started getting texts about this. Yeah. Wow. Luckily everybody thought it was really funny. Everybody's been very supportive, but it kind of throws you for, I'm like nobody in West Virginia, and then all of a sudden my name is out there, and then everybody wants to help, when people were like, hey, start a GoFundMe so I can send you some money, and stuff like that. So it actually worked out really good, but it was not anything that I was expecting or ever planned for.
Right. So have you heard from anyone in Russia about any of this yet? Have you?
I have not, but I'll tell you what has disappointed me is, I don't have the best relationship with my DNC members, we disagree on a lot, but I think that they know that I really want things to be better for West Virginia, and that every time that I push them, they know, I think that they know who I am in my heart, even if I disagree with them on things and push them on things, and not one of them has reached out to say publicly anything in support of me, or, I mean, that really has disappointed me and one of them is in my county, like one of them lives in my county and has not reached out or said anything publicly about, hey, Mulholland, or back off. This is our girl,
Right, yeah.
But so whatever.
So he didn't tell you this to your face. He asked you who you voted for, and then time went by, and then I guess just your constant presence bothered him. And then he decided to just randomly bring this up months later via email to DNC members. I
think so. When we were in DC, when I told you he was like trying to pick a fight with me or something. I mean, he said something about Justin and Russia and sitting with Putin, but he didn't make that accusation against me at that time. But like I'd already decided in Nevada, like I can't have a conversation. I mean, like you can't have a conversation with him, and so I just I'm polite to people, but I did not want to get into it with him, so I didn't really engage with him at that point. But he did say something about Justin and Russia, and then I think that was either in December or January. I think it was last December, and then I haven't heard anything from him. There was like a spring meeting, and I saw him there, but we didn't speak that I remember. So it's just bizarre.
So are you already prepared for, I guess I should say, are you already preparing for the grand return to the next DNC meeting after all this has come out?
Yeah, I've already got my plane ticket.
Beautiful. I love it.
It's August 23rd, 24th, and 25th in Chicago at the Hyatt Regency. And so, yes, because that's when they're going to, I mean, this is the meeting I've been waiting for, is when they
I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. Just this is the meeting you're waiting for because...
Oh, this is where they're going to make the decision. That they will make a decision on all these reforms, including superdelegates. And I've been, waiting 2 years for that, and so I would not miss that for the world. And I pray that they would do the right thing so that we can have something to unify around. It's not going to be perfect. I don't want anybody to expect it to be perfect. But if it's just enough that we can get a foot in the door and start moving forward, I want them to not treat Bernie people bad, and I want the Bernie people to not treat them people bad. I just want us to, work together, respect people's differences, and move forward. That's what I want.
I completely agree. And you have this added bonus too, that this was going to be interesting enough in general, but now you're going to go, and it's going to be the first time where you've seen all these faces after you've been accused of being a Russian agent.
I would bet that somebody offers to buy me vodka.
Right. And I'm looking at this picture, Selina, and that famous picture of Putin sitting at that dinner table in Russia with Jill Stein and Michael Flynn. I'm looking real close. You sure that's not you sitting in the back in one of those back tables? I mean, I don't know.
I'm positive.
All right, Selina Vickers. She is an activist from West Virginia who has been really... I honestly don't think there's been anyone who... I know that Nomiki from Young Turks has covered the DNC stuff great, but really you have gone beyond even that and been really attending all these things and making sure everyone has been not only informed, but also that over there as they're doing this and they see, oh, look, there's no one observing really, been making sure everyone's been in line, I guess. So...
and to me, that was the important part. It started out to, like, people wanted to know what was going on, and so I started live streaming it. But then after I started thinking about it, like, they are making historic decisions that will absolutely affect all of us. And in my mind, and I might be delusional, but in my mind, the fact that they know that they are being recorded. Now, they have recordings. I'm sure that the DNC has transcripts and things like that, but you will never get access to them for 20 years or something. But to me, it was really important to have them, for them to know that whatever they vote on, what they talk about, that's going to live, somewhere in the internet, and that people have access to it and they will be accountable to it. And it also gives a way for people who do care to know what's going on so they can contact them and push for something, So I think that it's really valuable. And here's like one thing that happened that I was just shocked about. The day of my primary, I couldn't go, and my friend Amy, she went and live streamed for me, and I couldn't hear her, and so they had the speakers in the back of the room, and I told her to tell them to move the speakers up, and they wouldn't move it, and so I wrote this email to all of them that night and about transparency and how important this stuff is and blah, blah, blah. So they turned the speakers up, and then one of the other members, Ken Martin, who is the chair of the State Chairs Association, he's president of that, he made a motion for them to be moving towards transparency. And so this last meeting in Providence, they didn't live stream it, but they recorded it, and they're going to put it on their website. And I think that I have like a little bit to do with that. And it was really funny because like several of the members came up to me and pointed like, hey, did you see the camera over there? And I'm like, yeah. And Donna Brazil, who I have difficulties with, like she specifically came to me and pointed out, and she said, they told me that they didn't have money to do this. And I told them that they spend their money in all kinds of other stupid shit. They need to do this. So,
oh, wow.
And so, they need to move towards live streaming, but I don't know why it costs anything. It doesn't cost me anything. It's free. Right. But anyway, I just think it's really important, and I appreciate, everybody that has, offered support. And now I think more people are going to watch the live streams, and that makes me happy as well.
Without a doubt, don't even downplay it. You without a doubt are responsible for that, without a doubt. So thank you. That's great. Where can people follow? Because I'm sure, especially for the big one that you're the grand finale coming up in Chicago. Where can people follow you so that they can check out your work and especially watch your streams while you're there in Chicago?
Okay, so I did have like my campaign page, and I initially did some for my personal page that I'm going to try to move over, but I had my campaign page, so I just changed. It was Vickers for House, but I changed it to just Selina Vickers, and it's a page, and there are events on that. So each of these meetings were an event, and they can watch them in there. And then I have my my website for my campaign. I just kind of turned it into a little bit different just for this stuff. And there's a whole section on there that are links not only to my live streams, but also to the DNC has better recording, and C-SPAN has better recording of some of them. And I put those links, but the ones that did not have that aren't covered by C-SPAN or on the DNC website are on my Facebook events, and I have the link. So that's at selinavickers.com. And then my Twitter, and I really suck at Twitter, but I'm trying to be a little bit better. But it's just Selina Vickers. All
right, Selina, thank you so much for joining us today. This was fantastic. I really enjoyed not only why I had you on for the DNC story, but just getting to learn. I did not know a lot of the things that we discussed about West Virginia and the politics there. So thank you so much. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Yes, I hope we are not doomed. All right. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, folks. Let's just pull up. I'm going to pull up just a few of the comments. We're going to have to end up doing like a call show because lately these interviews have been going along and I have not been able to take calls. So let me and that's the same for today. I won't be able to take your calls today, Jameson. Let me read some comments here. Oh, no, Miki's no longer with TYT. I did not know that. Thank you, guys. I did not know that. That is something that I just found out. Cool. Okay. Let's go to... What's this right here? Let's see. Emma is great too. Yes, she is. I think Emma's absolutely great too. I'm glad she, got to really take over that TYT politics feed actually once, the things the drama that happened over there with some other guy happened. I'm glad that didn't all, she seems great, so I'm happy that she, someone goes, hear that, Jameson? Time to call in. Great interview, Matt. Thank you. There was one or two comments I saw from earlier that I wanted to get to. Oh, someone mentioned what about Elizabeth Warren in West Virginia. Yeah, I don't think the former professor is going to bode too well. And I like Elizabeth Warren, don't get me wrong, but I don't think she's going to, win over the people of West Virginia. Yeah. Also, I find it really interesting, that Sean King story came out where he wrote about how Sean King wrote about how Bernie Sanders, as he spoke to him during the 2015 and 2016 as the primary election was kicking off, and how Bernie basically was learning about a lot of these racial justice issues and how many people are stuck behind bars because of they can't afford the bail. And people were attacking Bernie for apparently not knowing this. I just couldn't believe this. Like, you name another Democratic politician who, at least on a national scale, was talking about this stuff before 2015. Please, give me a break. And a lot of these people, Elizabeth Warren is one of their people they like to see run. Elizabeth Warren is worse on these issues than Bernie. Like, I like Elizabeth Warren a lot. She's great when it comes to, on Wall Street and finance and economic issues too. Yes, obviously, different way than Bernie is. She's great when she's, knocking on bankers when she has them sitting there in front of her. She's great on these issues, but where has she been on racial justice and these sort of issues? Like, are you serious? She's worse than Bernie on these things. And again, I'm saying this as a fan of Elizabeth Warren. This is something she'd have to fix if she was to run for president. Let's see. More comments here. Vermin Supreme 2020. So let me just, because I'm going to cut this part out, so let me go through how you could support this show, because I mentioned it earlier when there was that issue with the Skype call, so let me say it now, because that part, the earlier one's getting cut out. You could support this show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/MattBinder. $5 a month helps support this show. We've been sort of slow in reaching the goal, but we're going to get closer. Maybe I'm going to lower that goal a bit so we hit it, because I will put out that special bonus only Patreon material as soon as we hit that goal. But also remember that there was no live stream feed before the Patreon page. Patrons make this live stream happen, which means they make the comments and the call-ins and all that other stuff that wasn't previously in the free weekly interviews happen. I was not doing this before the patrons started to give me money. It's just hard, I need to, equipment-wise, and now that I have the equipment, time-wise, I need to really, I'm still going to do the free show, but patrons make the rest of the stuff happen. Let's see what else. Jim Justice is a great name. He was the guy, if you remember, who Trump had when Trump was already president and he went to have a rally in West Virginia. He said he had some big announcement, and Jim Justice went up there with Trump and made his official switch back to the Republican Party, as he was already nominated as a Democrat to become governor, and it already happened. So he made that big switch back to becoming a Republican with Trump at that Trump rally. Jim Justice. Not related to Sid Justice, by the way. All right, folks. This is an interesting comment, and you know what? I'm gonna hold off on this one. Cesarius asks, "How do I think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?" And I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I've listened to her name a million times. For some reason, I'm having a mental block right now. How I think she's gonna do versus Crowley. Interesting story. I'm actually one neighborhood over from being in her district. So I've been following this race very closely, and it also kills me that I cannot vote for her. I know those neighborhoods in Queens very, very well. And I think she has a very good shot to win. Very good shot. It all depends on who goes out there on election day. I'll probably talk about it more in the next podcast because that'll be the one right before the election day. Jim Justice, man spreader, says Dragon Slayer. All right, folks. I will talk to you all on the next episode of Doomed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel at doomed.tv. Subscribe to the iTunes feed. Oh, please, we're at something like, I think we're at like maybe close to 90, if not 90 reviews on iTunes. Get me to 100 reviews on iTunes, and I will be ecstatic. Let's do that. You can subscribe on iTunes for free to the free show, to the whole show you get on iTunes. You just don't, the live stream stuff comes with that because of the members, the patrons. And while you're there, leave a rating and a review, and I will be eternally grateful. See you all next time on... Oh, wait. How about the question regarding the purging of the voter rolls to Supreme Court? If I have time, that's from blah, blah, blah. That's really an issue that we're going to probably talk a whole episode on. I don't want to really just throw it in here right now. But I saw your comment. Don't worry, blah, blah, blah. See you all next time on Doomed.